Hey guys, welcome back to Boom TCG. Today we're going to be going over all of the leaders from the starter decks in set 1, as well as some of their various different options for decks, talk about their different playstyles, their strengths, their weaknesses, and hopefully try and figure out which one you would be most interested in playing. Let's dive right into it. Alright guys, let's get started. First color we're going to be talking about is red. First leader we're going to be talking about is Zoro. Zoro's ability is during your turn, while he has one Dawn attached to himself, all of your characters get plus 1000 power. This is an incredible stat buff that very quickly into the game gets applied every turn. Zoro is most commonly played as a very aggressive win-fast deck, but also can see play with the mid-range strategy, as we see a lot of solid mid-range cards in red. The aggro version tops more consistently, however, and I feel is more effective. With the amount of rush pieces in red, it is easy to be in a demanding early game position with this leader. As a Zoro player, you want to have multiple characters on your board every turn to really maximize the stats gained from the leader effect. You should play Zoro if you like shorter games, a more aggressive playstyle, or you want to focus on your own game plan instead of controlling your opponent. You should not play Zoro if you like slower games or like control decks where you get to interfere with your opponent's plan a lot. And with that out of the way, let's talk about our other option in mono red, Luffy. Luffy's ability is activate main, once per turn, attach one of your rested Dawn to one of your characters or leader. Luffy does some similar things to Zoro, but is focused far more on tempo. It plays aggressively, but the goal is to be using your Dawn as efficiently as possible every turn to make bigger plays. It can take a little more thought than Zoro, and honestly isn't quite as good. The incremental little stats gained from Luffy don't compare to that of Zoro, but it's nice to be able to tap out every turn and then still use a Dawn for aggression. It lets you run bigger things and focus more on playing the curve than just hyper aggression. You should play Luffy if you like to be challenged, like more tempo instead of pure aggro while still being a fast deck, and want to play on the curve. You should not play Luffy if you are a meta hunter, if you don't like faster decks and playstyles, or you want to play a control deck. Let's take a break from red to move on to green. We'll begin with the Kid leader. Kid has some diversity to how you want to play him. There are a few variations running around like Heart Pirates Tribal, but generally speaking, Kid is an extremely defensive deck that focuses on high value characters to apply pressure while still having a wall to go through before you can kill him. With his leader ability being able to untap himself by paying 3 Dawn and discarding a card, you don't even need pressure from your characters as long as you have a good defense. Play Kid if you like to build untouchable boards, generate a lot of hand advantage, or you want an easier deck to play. Do not play Kid if you like skill-intensive decks or don't like to play defensively and passively. Now we move on to Odin. Odin lets you discard a Wano Country card in order to restand 2 Dawn. This gives you some great play diversity, but limits you down in deck building variety as you're forced to run predominantly a specific card type, being Wano Country. Still, it gives you a use for a lot of dead Wano cards, so you can be a bit more greedy with what you choose to run. It also gives you access to the Kinemon SR, which is a really strong tempo card. It also has access to all of the defensive options the Kid deck does, so there's flexibility in playstyle. While Odin can be very powerful, it doesn't quite stack up to Kid, so if you're heavily invested in the meta, it may not be for you. Play Odin if you like skill-intensive decks, want to use the Kinemon card, or like flexible playstyles. Do not play Odin if you want a simpler deck, are a meta hunter, or don't want to be shoehorned into one type of card. Moving on to blue, we have Crocodile. Crocodile is one of the hardest decks in the game to me. He has an incredible amount of diversity in both playstyle and deck building, and knowing when and how to use your leader effect really separates the good players. He has access to a lot of good control pieces, while still playing proactively throughout the game. However, a big issue with Croc is how hard he is. Often a simple misplay will cost you the entire game, more so than with other decks. Also, the 8-cost Kid in green can be a big problem for blue decks, and while Crocodile can handle it, you need to be very aware of how to play around it. Play Croc if you like skill-intensive decks, want battlefield control, and have a good sense of game tempo. Do not play Crocodile if you are scared of green, want an easier deck to play, or don't like playing to the tempo of the game. Our other blue leader is Doflamingo. Doflamingo has the ability to play the top card of your deck if it is a Warlord of the Sea. This gives us a lot of pressure if we can control the top of our decks, which there are many ways for us to do. And since playing the card also involves a very large leader swing, you get a lot of early game tempo. Doflamingo being blue also gives it access to some decent control pieces. The biggest downfall of Doflamingo is its legitimate inability to answer the 8-drop Kitten Breed. This is a huge downfall for this deck, and holds it back in the meta. However, the deck is still incredibly fun and very powerful outside of that one matchup. You should play Doflamingo if you like decks with strong early and mid games, control over your own plays more than what your opponent is doing, or care more about fun decks than most optimal strats. You should not play Doflamingo if you are a meta hunter or if you struggle into green. Moving on to purple, we have Kaido. Kaido is a really strong leader with an effect that has won and lost me many a game. Dawn -7 to remove an opponent's life is truly crazy, and fits the theme of the color so well. Being a Beast Pirate leader also gives you access to Onigashima and the board wipe Kaido. Purple decks at the moment are all about heavy board control, and always having more presence than your opponent. However, they really only flourish in the mid to late game. Your early game is usually quite rough. You should play Kaido if you like slower strategies, heavy board control, and simpler decks. You should not play Kaido if you don't want to mulligan for Oni every single game, struggle with early game tempo, or like skill-intensive decks. Our other purple option is King, and I gotta be honest, I don't like King at all. He is my least favorite leader in the game. His ability clashes with what a purple deck wants to do, which is use their Dawn with her minus effects. And gaining this ability over the Kaido ability with no other benefits seems foolish to me. Play this deck if you like to meme, not if you're a meta hunter. That finishes up all the monocolor leaders. To move on to our multicolors, we're going to start with Luffy. Well underrepresented, this deck shouldn't be slept on. It is a very solid mid-range strategy that if it gets ahead, stays ahead. Its ability to steamroll over an opponent is large. However, its biggest problem is if it falls behind, it does not make a comeback. Against a purple or blue deck that never lets you set up in the first place, this is nowhere to go. And it can often be out aggroed by the other options in the meta. Still a viable strategy and a lot of fun though. It also has a ton of different ways to be played and built. Play this deck if you like mid-range or tempo decks, steamroll strategies, and deck and build diversity. Do not play this deck if you are a meta hunter or want a deck with comeback potential. Our other red-green leader is Law. Law is a fun and strong deck with a ton of build and play diversity. It both aggroes an opponent down early and has solid late game options. It generates a ton of hand advantage along the way, while putting down a ton of pressure. However, it can struggle to come back if it falls behind, and can be out aggroed by other decks. It is also really hard to play properly and very easy to make little mistakes that all add up throughout a game. Play this deck if you like build and play diversity, fast strats and combos, and skill-intensive decks. Do not play this deck if you like comeback plays, control lists, or want a simpler strategy. Moving over to blue-purple, we have Kaido. Kaido has some of, if not the most, build and play diversity of any deck. There are a ton of viable ways to play this deck, and it only appears to get stronger as more support gets revealed past set 1. It is a pretty tricky deck though, and making a list that works for your personal playstyle can be hard. Still, it gives you early tempo and control while being a late game powerhouse. Play this deck if you like late game decks, heavy control, and build and play diversity. Do not play this deck if you like early game decks, want a simpler strategy, or struggle with deck building. Lastly, we move on to Blue-Purple Crocodile. Blue-Purple Crocodile is one of the most defensive decks in the game. It generates a lot of hand advantage and often slows the game to a halt while slowly whittling your opponent down and staying alive through the grind. This can be tedious, and often doesn't work if you get aggroed down too quickly or lose too many resources early. But when you are set up in the late game, it can be near impossible to tear you down. Play this deck if you like slow gameplay, control, and survivability. Do not play this deck if you are a meta hunter or like early or mid game strategies. Today's video was sponsored by Top Deck TCG. This is an awesome website where not only can you buy singles for some of your favorite trading card games, but it acts as a hub for various content creators so you can stay up to date in those games. This is their homepage. As you can see, they currently carry Flesh and Blood, Digimon, Transformers, and Star Wars Destiny. They are going to be carrying One Piece in the winter when its official American release comes out. If you go over to game videos and podcasts, you can see some of your favorite content creators, including your favorite One Piece content creators, for all of these various games so that you can stay up to date on what is good right now. It's all very easy to use, and the guy is great. And if you use your promo code TheMoonmen, not case sensitive at all, you'll get 10% off any order you place. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. I certainly hope you did. You can find links to my Twitch and my Patreon in the description, as well as the promo code and the links to Top Deck TCG. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.